Right, well, morning all. Today's mission is to start the clean up and get the front end of this engine spotlessly clean, or the thick of it off. We're obviously going to do a few stages of cleaning up. I want to get this pipe out for the cooling to the compressor head. You may remember we spoke about that in the first video. And that will allow me to get this bracket off and really get some of this oil cleared. We've got to get down the back of here and get all this cleared, and obviously the pulley. And down this side as well. Probably get the oil cooler off today. I think my route from here on in will be to get this front end somewhere where I'm happy with it, get the oil cooler off, get the pipe up to the water rail off, and then take the water rail itself off and clean that side down. I am going to chicken out. I'm not going to take the exhaust manifold off. I've taken some advice off Mr. Keyworth, and if he says no, that's what I'm doing. And then hopefully by tonight we'll be down by the flywheel cleaning out the flywheel housing. Main object at the moment is to get it painted. I'm not worried about building it and putting all this stuff back in. A lot of this stuff I've washed down now, and it's on one side. And once the engine itself is in the frame rails, we can then start the rebuild. It's as easy to put that water rail on when the engine's in the chassis as it is here. So I think to speed things up, I want to get cleaned up, get painted, and start getting the chassis rails on it. And I'm sure a number of you want to see the chassis rails coming in rather than repeatedly working on smaller items. That will give us some challenges later on for painting. But anyway, let's get that pipe off. Obviously a reasonably simple affair this. It's got some brass nuts on it. I don't expect it putting a massive resistance up. Inner nut is 7/8 and this out one is 15/16. I think that's there. Not sure what the size of this is, this union into the compressor, but I'm really conscious that if we don't support it, we're gonna basically break it. Well, that's actually loose. A little bit of prying to get him out. There we go. Bit of coolant running out, so we'll get him really cleaned up and just check the integrity of that pipe. See if we can get another one maybe. Actually doesn't look too bad now I've got it off. Back in with a 9/16 socket here. You've got to say Cummins do like a 3/8 bolt, and that's UNC. Perfect. Great stuff. Let's get that cleaned up as well. Right, so this is obviously the auxiliary pulley. It's used for a number of things in our application. It's obviously used for driving the alternator and the water pump. It's also used for timing the engine. Can't 100% be reliable, because if the gears have been out, if the timing gears have been out and the engine's not timed properly, then this wheel can actually be out, this pulley can actually be out, and we'll cover that later. But I want to get it off because I'd like to clean behind it. So we've got this 1.5/16 nut in the middle, and then with two drawing bolts. Now I was hoping they were going to be 1/2" UNC, but they appear to be 7/16 UNC. I'm certain I do not have any 7/16 UNC. I'm going to have a scrat about, but I think ultimately we're going to be making some bolts here, which I could have really done without, but I think it'll bother me if I don't pull that pulley off and clean behind it properly and then paint it properly, because it will also give me an opportunity to replace the seal. So yeah, best look for some bolts. Now I suppose first job's going to be getting the nut off, so see if this will do it. That nut's come off pretty easy really, hasn't it? See, we've got the keyway in it there. Just going to give it a tap with plastic mallet. By Jove, that could be moving. Two 7/16 bolts would have definitely been easier, but I'm very happy that it's coming like this. Here we go. Perfect. Let's get that in the tub for a wash, and then we can really examine it and look at getting the markings restored on the outside. Plus we can replace this seal now. Keyway's in firm. We can replace the seal, get all washed up there, that'd be great. Right, next job is get the oil cooler off and get this water rail off and clean this top up. We're not taking the exhaust manifold off, but I am going to peen these lock tabs over that haven't been peened over. I have washed this bottom half of the engine and that's coming up pretty well, so we just need to blast this top out. Get in there. Well, we've just got 5 3/8 bolts on this, so it shouldn't be a big deal. But it'd be good just to see how we go. I'm going to break them off first with the that's an unfortunate term with phrase, isn't it? I'm going to slacken them with the ratchet, because that one especially does not feel great. Neither does that one. That one feels terrible. Oh, now we've got a broken bolt. Typical. That's gonna. That's gonna be some fun. Looks like it's broken flush on the housing, so we should have some we should have something to work with there at least. So one of the 5 broken, not too bad, and it's going to make it tight to come off. Let's get the plastic hammer. So we can see here we've got all this that we want to clean up. Get a new gasket for it. So this gallery here, this hole here, takes us straight into the water pump area. So that's how they get the cooling. And then you've got your oil in and out here, feed and return on your oil. Obviously been off before because it's got white silicone on it. That bolt should be easy enough to get out. So we're onto this water rail now. I've been at it for about an hour. I've got all the bolts out apart from these last two. I don't buy a lot of snap-on spanners, especially these days. I buy them second-hand off eBay or something like that. And I didn't really buy a lot back in the day, but I did have a set of Imperial snap-on spanners, or Blue Points. And this is where you notice the difference between a snap-on and, you know, a Kamasa or a Teng or whatever it might be, because it fits so nice, it's slim, it really grips the nut. I mean, if the Americans can't build you an Imperial spanner, who can? And it reduces the risk of rounding the head and doing damage. But every one of them, we've had to go through this process of slackening off, spraying, tightening up, spraying, and then hoping for the best. You cannot do that with a cheap spanner. So I'll just carry on with this and come back to you when I've got them both out, which is probably going to be about a quarter of an hour. We're as good as there with this. Just try and get this last bolt out. Cummins didn't want you to pop these out dead easy, that's for sure. But I suppose they were limited on room. What we got here? That's a Featherlight extra fine Jorex we've just found there. That must have dropped out of the cab. There were a few knocking about in the cab, and we stripped the cab over the top of the engine. So that's where that's come from. A bit more wrapper there. These have definitely been off, covered in black silicone. We'll obviously use some sort of sealant again. But the big job is obviously to get this cleaned up now. Right, next job is to get this broken stud out. Shouldn't be too big a task, I don't think that. I'm going to use my collet set. We've seen this before, shown this before. So we've got a 3/8 16 collet in there. 3/8 UNC, not UNF, UNC. Got a little bit of thread showing. So we'll get a couple of spanners and wind him on. Really fortunate to have the thread showing and so much protruding out of the hole. And as you can see, it's winding on reasonably easy, that. There we are, we've made contact. I've obviously had some penetrating oil soaking on it, and I'm really putting some power on that. Right. The only downside with this is, although I'm working it, I don't know whether it's the thread coming out or the tool spinning on the bolt. But the way it's coming, the way it feels, I think it's the thread coming out. So let's get a bit of oil going in there, and then we can go for it a bit. Lovely. As easy as that. Well, we've made some good progress now. The water rail's off. I've knocked these tabs over. on the exhaust manifold. We're just going to paint them as we go. I've decided not to remove that. Managed to get the water tap out the back, so had to strip it down into 3 pieces. The tap itself, an adapter bung which was 7/8, and the plug that went into the actual block, which was 1 3/8 from memory. While I was at it, we might as well go the old log, and I got the block drain plug out as well, so that's cleaned up. I'm going to leave it out for now while we do the actual clean out, because I want as many orifices open on the water jacket as possible, because we've got some open and we need to be able to flush it all through. Next job really is to turn the engine. I want to keep most of the oil and the cleaning fluids here, so I'm going to turn the engine, start on the back, in the flywheel housing and what have you, in the back of the block, and then obviously we've got the other side of the engine to do. It's been quite a day already. I mean, I've been at this probably for about 6 hours now. A lot of people have asked me about, are you just setting the top end up because you're doing the engine work? Well, we will do eventually, but there's that much other work involved in sorting this engine out, you know, basically cosmetically, before we start on all the major adjustments, and then getting it so that it holds fluids. You know, we've 6 water rail gaskets to make, with a coolant gasket to make down there, we've got an oil cooler gasket to make down there, with these to reinstate. We're probably going to have a look at these side plates as well. There's lots and lots of work in it without us setting about the top, and to be fair, the top end can be done when it's sat in the chassis. The big target now is to get this engine sat in the chassis. It'd be lovely if it was sat on springs, chassis rails, axles, axle stands in the chassis. That'd be utopia. That's where we'd really like to get to, and then we can really start to build the truck. So yeah, a lot of work, but we're getting there. Right, we're going to rinse that out now, because it's in that bell housing. We're going to use the chemical lamps. Right, so we're going to wash the back of the bell housing out, and we're going to use this tool. I don't know anybody else who's actually got one of these. It's a snap-on parts washer of some description. We had a snap-on man when I worked at Longson's called Glenn Clark, and he just got a knack of forcing you into buying crap you didn't really want. But in this occasion, this is actually a really good tool, and it relies on air pressure and some sort of fluid, and if you bend it, it shoots the liquid out with the air. I've got a drum of something here that came out the father-in-law's shed not long after he died. So it could be 2-stroke, could be paraffin, could be weed killer. I don't really know, which is why I'm going to wear the mask. I've already used a bit of it, and I do know it doesn't burn too badly, so we're alright. Let's have a go. It makes your eyes sting, so I'm putting some glasses on.